box, Mr. Incredible edition, joined by Frankenstein's assistant. It's Halloween, it's All Saints Day, it's All Hallows Eve, whatever you're celebrating, Day of the Dead. We're wearing costumes today because we wanted to be fun and kind of weird. I actually just had to get up and go answer the door, so I just embarrassed myself in front of a contractor. So that was how my afternoon kicked off. Jordan, how are you?
I am good. We are doing this show earlier in the day instead of at night, and because of that, there will be even more baby sounds in the background. But we'll be able to enjoy our night, and I think that that's a good thing.
Absolutely. So it's an interesting inflection point in the Minnesota Vikings season. This show is still about the Vikings. It is not about Halloween. A couple weeks ago we did sort of a state of the Vikings show where we talked about where the Vikings stood at 2-4 heading into the Niners game. Kind of a, state of the union. How are things going? Do we blow it up? Do we go for it, etc.? That whole conversation kind of feels irrelevant to some degree because of what happened to the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday afternoon at Lambeau Field. The final play of his afternoon was a 3rd and 19. He scrambled out of the pocket to try and avoid a sack, and his right Achilles tendon tore. His season ended. The man who has not been on the injury report since week 1 of 2013 is out for the season. And the Vikings have had to move on. They completed a trade for Joshua Dobbs from the Arizona Cardinals yesterday on Tuesday. And the quarterback position it's in flux insofar as you're not, employing your 4-time Pro Bowl quarterback, but it is more solidified insofar as they now have their options moving forward. It's either going to be Jaren Hall or it's either going to be Joshua Dobbs or maybe Nick Mullins, depending on performance and injuries. So, Jordan, any thoughts on the Kirk Cousins injury outside of just, prayers and support for the Cousins family and just kind of everything that they're
Right.
going to have to go through now?
Nothing. I mean, obviously, you kind of went through and we've stated the facts, and if you want our thoughts on the trade that transpired yesterday, we did do like an emergency show, so that's up. It's on our YouTube channel. It is out wherever you get your podcast. It was a little 20-minute. Hey, this is what happened at the deadline. Here's what we expect to happen with Josh Dobbs and everything like that. It was a good show, and I thought it was very informative. A couple of things. I have 2 things I want to say that I have to say, or else I won't be able to sleep tonight. Number 1, Kirk Cousins successfully underwent surgery, which I'm not positive if you said or not. You probably did because you're good at this.
I did
and
not.
I'm not. Okay, well, he did successfully undergo surgery. To repair his Achilles. His cast is, of course, Viking purple, and he also is I think you text me and said give him a lifetime contract, because he went to a Halloween event at the Viking Stadium on a scooter the day before, or 2 days before, he had Achilles surgery, and was signing autographs and meeting fans. I usually try to not let good guy factor into like business decisions about the future of the team. I'd give him 10% of the team and tell him that he can't play for anybody else ever again. He's just a Viking until we decide that he's not a Viking and he doesn't count against the cap because he has 10% of the team. I guess he counts as like vet minimum or something like that. Fine, I'm sure there's some funky way that we can do that. Number 2 thing I want to talk about, and I know we promised to keep this brief, but the NFL, and I'm going to use some choice words, so if you have small children listening, I promise there won't be any Fs, but the NFL are cheap bastards who refuse to hire landscaping companies to maintain grass fields. And it's outrageous. And the reason it's outrageous, I would maybe understand it. And I'm usually a guy who sides with the NFL on these kinds of things. I usually am very much like, I don't like when, teams and fan bases rally together to change rules about overtime, because it's like football has been played this way for a long time, and At what point do we just say, like, okay, well, we're going to make a new game and call it football 2? The whole grass field versus turf field thing pisses me off so bad because FIFA comes in and they say, hey, NFL owners, we won't play in your stadiums unless you put actual grass in. And Jerry Jones and the rest of the billionaires all collectively bend their knee to FIFA and say, yes, we will get grass and we will hire lawn crews for those days and for those months, and we will maintain grass fields for you, almighty FIFA overlords. And as a red-blooded American, that makes me angry because football is America's game. I know that baseball is like, you know what? No, it's football. Football is it's the most popular sport in the country, and we're bending over backwards to appease soccer instead of keeping the athletes that you pay millions and millions of dollars to, that go out there and put their bodies on the line week after week to basically print the owner's money. Because that's what owning an NFL team is. It's owning a money machine that just keeps churning out more money every year. It's ridiculous. And I don't think that injury happens on grass. I don't think the Aaron Rodgers injury happens on grass. And now, and this is one, I think this is just speaking to how highly Cousins has played this year. You have 30% of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL popped their Achilles because we elected to play on cheap, fake plastic grass instead of real grass. So I didn't say that in the show yesterday. I didn't think we'd have the time. We're doing the full-length, once-a-week show tonight. I had the time to say it. So I have to blame somebody. I'm not blaming Green Bay. It's not just a Green Bay thing. I think that injury would have happened in Minnesota, in Atlanta, in basically anywhere except for like the 2 or 3 fields that actually use real grass. I know Chicago's one of them. So Chicago, a team that, you know, we usually don't give a lot of props around here. Props to you for having the common sense to keep your players safe and play on real grass. So it's just terrible. It really is just terrible.
Well, quick aside, does it change your opinion that Lambeau Field does have grass?
No, I looked it up. That it has turf.
Are you sure about that?
I pinky swear I looked it up yesterday, and it said that it has turf. And if it didn't, then I'm gonna have to edit this show to do we're gonna have to take that out.
I see it is Kentucky bluegrass reinforced with SIS grass, whatever SIS grass is.
Maybe they put grass in. Maybe I read an outdated article. This is from 2018. It says new turf field welcomes the Packers into 2018. But
interesting.
Man, this says on PackersHome.com it's a hybrid turf. It used to be grass only, but now it's a hybrid of turf and grass.
How does that even work?
I have no idea, and I'm trying to research that. Mini field turf.
Let's see. Here we go. We got a ESPN article from 2023.
Okay, let's
we like to see.
This.
Scroll down here to the NFC North. Soldier Field is Bermuda grass, natural, very good.
Okay.
Lambeau Field, natural Kentucky bluegrass and Sisgrath polyethylene fibers, which to me sounds kind of artificial. So it looks like a combination.
I don't know how that functions. And look, maybe I'm just angry at this. Maybe this is how I'm taking out my anger that, you know, the Vikings top 5 quarterback, who I've hated for 6 years now and have finally fallen in love with, popped his Achilles. But even if it didn't have anything to do with it, that's a conversation for another day. Just about the turf and stuff, but I don't know, man. That is an injury that I feel like you don't see happen on all natural grass all the time. But yeah, I don't know if you are a grass expert. Please comment below and tell us what the hell Lambeau Field is made out of, because it sounds like fitting with the goggles and the hood. It sounds like it's a Frankenstein's monster of a football field. So maybe I should hate Lambeau Field. Maybe it's the damn synthetic grass's fault.
You know, I'm just a quick Google search tells me that cis grass stuff is about 95% natural grass and 5% artificial. So most of that is natural, but But maybe to your point, there is something artificial about it. Who knows? I mean, neither of us are scientists. We're definitely not grass experts. Also, as an aside, when you have those glasses on, you look like the guy from Despicable Me,
I knew you were going to
the
say
the old guy.
Despicable Me. Yes, and I'm sorry. I'm gonna try to keep the goggles visible. They are so smudged. I
I
can't
bet.
see out of them. I might as well do the show with my eyes closed, and I can't do an entire show. This is a terrible show for podcast listeners so far. We've done 5 minutes of Lambeau Field research on our computers, mixed with 2 minutes of talking about Halloween costumes that you can't see. Will is in a muscle suit. I don't. Is that a muscle suit? Or do you just wear baggy clothes and you're actually cut?
We'll go with the second one of those.
Yeah, yeah. And I am in a flannel and then just a cheap Amazon hood that I got because my daughter stole the show. And then I have these big, like, welding-looking goggles on, but they're so smudged I can't see anything, so they have to sit on top of my head for this show. But it does suck that Kirk Cousins got help. Yes. But I do think that we should not dwell on that for this entire show because there are 21 other starters on the football team, and many guys play. There's 45 other active members of the Vikings that were active for the game in Green Bay. A 13-point win in Lambeau where the defense really slammed the door like 3 different times, it felt like. It felt like Green Bay, the offense, especially after Cousins went down, gave Green Bay every opportunity to get back into the game, and the defense continued to shut them out, and that was my biggest takeaway, if you will. One, Danielle Hunter, I believe, had a sack in that game. He continues to lead the league in sacks. And also just like Josh Metellus taking the ball away from a Packers wide receiver to get an interception. It was just, I don't know, it wasn't Mile the Vikings defense played really well, or was it Mile Jordan Love is not that guy as of this moment in 2023?
It's a good question. I would lean, if I had to pick one side of those, I would lean toward the defense played really well. A quick note on Jordan Love. There were a handful of throws that were out there that he could have and should have made that would have changed the course of the game. Like, it's just, you can't avoid some of these where it's a downfield sideline shot and he just overthrew the receiver.
Yeah.
Things like that, where it's like, that's a big explosive play waiting to happen. You miss the receiver completely. It just goes in the scorebook as an incomplete pass. However, the Vikings defense was and has been for the last 5 weeks just very staunch. The improvements that they've made sort of like across the board has been remarkable. I was especially impressed by the front. Yes, we got some sacks. I think Wanham had a couple. Danielle Hunter had that strip sack at the end of the game that basically ended it. And, there were some of those things on the pass rush, but I was very impressed by Harrison Phillips, especially just in the middle stuffing runs. It was sort of a all afternoon thing. Anytime the Packers were trying to get the run game going or they needed a short yardage conversion, it just felt like 97 was in there and blowing the thing up. He had a couple goal line tackles that were especially impressive. And so, I mean, just a transformation by the defense, and it was just on display. A couple really key pass breakups in the end zone, one by Bynum, one by Blackman on one of those, those final 2 drives where the Packers were trying to get themselves back in the game. And yeah, I mean, it was a full team effort defensively, and I think it's more to say about what Brian Flores is doing than it is to say about Jordan Love just not being a good quarterback yet.
Yeah, and I think you did a good job of outlining that, like, there were plays to be made by Jordan Love, but also I do think that on a couple of crucial third downs and then late in the game, fourth downs, the defensive front did a good job of getting a little bit of pressure on Jordan Love to where he had to basically, he looks downfield and he says, no one's open right now. I'm going to take off and run. And they had them in like a 1,015, a 1,017, 1,025. Like he's not picking that up. I mean, it's just not doable. And so the Vikings rallied to the ball, did a good job, and they stopped him short on every run. And I was screaming, watching the game with my family for the first time in forever due to illness and, work schedules and things like that. Watching the game with my dad and brother, I was like, let him keep running the ball. QB sneak on, or QB power on 1,015 is beautiful to me.
Take it.
And so to hold a division rival to 10 points in their building, I think says a lot about the defense. I was really happy with the way that they played. Also, quick update from what I'm reading online about Lambeau Field, because I have to answer this question for myself now. The top is supposed to be a cushion of real grass. So it's real grass on top, but the grass is made to not be dense enough that cleats can't get through. So cleats get through the grass to get into the artificial stuff, so you still have that like grippiness that you get from turf. And so I do think we can blame Lambeau Field for the Achilles tail, because Cousins' cleat was in the the fake, didn't give the way that real grass or dirt would. And so there was the answer to that question that was posed 7 minutes ago that I just couldn't let go. But yeah, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, can I just read some quick stats on what the defense has been doing, or do you have a comment that you wanted to carry on that?
I was going to move. I'm just going to very quickly, because I don't have a ton to say, and a lot of it is null and void now that Cousins is out for the season. It is very unfortunate because the offense I wrote down was finding rhythm. And I think that they were really, especially without Justin Jefferson, it was almost like when JJ got back, we had to not mess up what we had found with this new offense without him. And we had to work him in, which is a crazy thing to say about the Vikings offense. But I'm going to really quickly, so I don't forget, say, a couple of weeks ago, I said we should consider trading Jefferson because he's the only thing that works on the offense. And you said correctly, by the way, you were going to give it like a month and see what the offense looked like over that stretch. You were correct. We should have given it more time. I think the offense is good without Jefferson. I do think we just have a good offense, and Jefferson is a good piece of it. And so I have to say that I was incorrect about trading Jefferson. Don't send him anywhere. Keep him in town. He's just going to make the team better. But that's all kind of null and void because now we have Jaren Hall starting. Let's get back to the defense, because that's what's going to be the crucial part of this season from now on.
Yeah, and that point on Jefferson, I think, especially, we'll learn a lot more about the QB situation as these next nine weeks go. But if you're going to have either Jaren Hall or a rookie playing next year, we can get into off-season talk on whether or not Kirk is going to come back, later down the road. Although it does sound like the team would like to bring him back. Jefferson's going to be important for a rookie to throw to. I think we've said that before. Whether it's Jaren Hall or Drake May or Jordan Travis or whoever's throwing the ball for the Vikings next year, having Justin Jefferson is going to be a huge security blanket. But on the defensive side, just a few stats that I think are like really indicative of what this team has done over the last 5 weeks compared to the first 3. In the first 3 weeks, they had 2 takeaways. In the last 5 weeks, they've had 8. So that in and of itself is stark. They're taking the ball away a lot more. I think a really important one is they were 25th in yards per play allowed. So, bottom third of the league. They are now 3rd in the league over the last 5 weeks in yards per play. Yards per play is generally a pretty good measure of like how efficient an offense is operating. And when a defense has a low yardage per play, that just means that they are making it awfully tough on the offense to actually just move the ball consistently. And then the last thing, the most important thing, the first 3 weeks, it was 27.3 points a game allowed. Over the last 5, it's been 16 points a game allowed. You can look at some of the defenses or the offenses that they faced in those first couple weeks. You're a little bit more scared of Philadelphia and the Chargers than you are of the Panthers and the Bears. However, allowing 10 points on the road in Lambeau Field is never something to sniff at. So Anyway, just some of those stats I thought were important to mention, just because of I think it illustrates the dominance that they've been playing with lately.
Yeah. The defense has been playing out of its mind, and we'll get into this whenever we talk about the Atlanta game. But a spoiler about the rest of the season, the defense, I said this yesterday on the show too, the defense kind of has to be the strength of this team, and it kind of has to be the rallying point. Because you don't lose a top 5 quarterback and just pick up where you left off with Josh Dobbs, a 5th round rookie. So the defense is going to have to continue to play at this level. And what a lot of people are pointing out is you look at some of the offenses that we face over the next few weeks, specifically just quarterbacks. It's, Heineke this week, and then it's Derek Carr, and then it's Aiden O'Connell, I think, is in there somewhere. Russell Wilson's in there at one point. Like, there's a lot of quarterbacks that if they have been good, it's been a few years since they've been considered to be good. And so the defense has an opportunity to really dominate over the next 5-6 games and make whoever is playing quarterback's life a lot easier. One more thing I want to say about this Green Bay game. Greg Joseph stinks. I don't know what to, and I'm not saying we cut Greg Joseph. I'm just pointing out a fact that he's not very good. The problem with kickers, and this is the same with every fan base. Every fan base, your kicker misses 2 or 3 kicks, and they say he should not be on the team. And it's like, well, who do you want? Do you want to bring Ryan Longwell back and beg him to come kick a ball and be like, could you kick it from, if we get you within 45, could you make it? What's your long now, Ryan? There's no one out there, because if there was someone out there who could dependably make you a 30-plus yard field goal, he would be on a team, and they would not be interested in getting rid of him because that's such a commodity. And I don't know what the answer is. Maybe it is the mental mind games of dealing with kickers. Well, Joseph seems to do better when we have competition, so maybe we bring in competition on the practice squad, and we let him know that, hey, you're getting close to the let's try somebody else territory, and then he'll tone it back on. But, I mean, my God, man. San Francisco, you missed the kick, and I didn't blame him because I didn't love that O'Connell trotted him out there for a 50-plus yarder in that scenario, that game, that moment. But you got to make that kick, or you want him to make that kick, and then he's missing kicks yesterday. Oh, I say yesterday, it's Wednesday. He's missing kicks on Sunday that you would just expect him to make, and then he kicks one out of bounds. And it's like, what are we doing, Greg? What are we doing? So special teams talk here. The kicker's not good, and I don't know what the answer is because it's not a sexy position to scout.
No, the special teams on Sunday was egregious, and I think Matt Daniels basically said as much in his press conference yesterday. He basically said, yeah, we didn't hold up our end of the bargain. Offense and defense did their job. The special teams did not. I don't know the mechanics of, that out of bounds kick, but I do remember that was the one where the ball had been blown over multiple times. Yeah. And so Theo Jackson had to come in, or maybe it was Metellus had to come in and hold the, hold it on the tee.
It did look like as he let go, he tried to lift his finger.
He pulled his finger up
at the last second, and you saw it was, if you slow-mo through it, it looks like, the green screen, don't betray me. It looked like he lifted the finger, the ball started to tip, and then the ball got kicked. So, not entirely on Greg Joseph there, but, I mean, you can't really say that it was Ryan Wright's fault that he missed what? Did he miss 2 field goals and an extra point?
He missed one to the right, and then he got blocked on a field goal as well.
Because it looked like he was trying to spear that ball, kick for distance instead of just put it up. I don't know. Maybe I'm blaming him for stuff that isn't his fault. But.
Regardless of whether or not, the kick out of bounds or the blocked field goal was Greg Joseph's fault, special teams clearly had a bad day and have had a couple bad days now sort of in a row where we need that ship to right itself a little bit more. I think I can't remember why Kane Wongwu was not taking kicks back in Green Bay, but there was that, Ty Chandler had that massive kick return Sunday get called back because of an Ivan Pace holding call that I'm not 100% sure I agreed with, but it was a holding call nonetheless. So there's some things in the special teams game that were just backbreakers that in a closer game potentially lose you that game. Thankfully the offense and the defense did their job. I mean, because you look at that game, 24 points, you don't look at that as like, wow, offensive explosion. But if you make those 2 field goals, it's 30 points. And, I think we can all assume that like a 42-yard field goal and a 45-yard field goal are ones that Greg Joseph and frankly almost all NFL kickers make on a regular basis. So the weird thing about Joseph is that he goes through these stretches and then just watch. It'll probably be, he probably won't miss another kick until week 17 now, just because he does these weird things where it's like, oh, he's terrible for a month, and then he's the best kicker in the world and hits 5 walk-off kicks. So I think I agree with you in that. Like, I think I'd like to have a new kicker next year. However, who?
And you get into the discussion of like, I mean, what would you give to have Justin Tucker on this team?
Oh.
And like, there's that old debate of like, if you were the Ravens, would you trade him for a second? And if you were any football team, would you trade us like a second or third round pick for Justin Tucker? He's like a walking automatic field goal. And I don't want to do the debate, of what we would give up for like the best kicker arguably in NFL history. But, yeah, we definitely need to explore the kicking position in the off season. Do I need to talk about Atlanta?
I was gonna say let's go to the Falcons.
Yeah. So my false note for the Falcons game, I have, and we're not gonna be able to talk about this until like this should be the last week that we kind of say like, well, without Kirk Cousins, like this should be the only show that we do where we kind of really hammer home that we don't have our starting quarterback, because after this week it's like, okay, everybody should be up to pace by now, like we have to accept what life is. So how could it be worse for the Vikings going into Atlanta this week? Number one, the Cousins injury could have happened in the middle of the week instead of on Sunday. So Jaren Hall has known since Sunday at about 2:00 Central Time that he is the starter on Sunday. And so he got some reps in Green Bay. He's been practicing all week. I love listening to him talk because he really is. He's such a mature, like, backup. He sounds so confident in himself, but not cocky. And just listening to him talking about staying late after practice with his coaches to work on things and to hammer home fundamentals and his throwing mechanics. He's known all week what the plan is. They're instilling the plan into him. Everyone knows what the plan is. There's no mysteries. There's no signing Josh Dobbs or making the trade for Josh Dobbs on Tuesday and hoping that we can email him the playbook and have him studying on the flight to Minnesota and on the flight, down to Atlanta. So that's the number one way it could be worse. The number two way, we could be starting Sean Mannion or Josh Dobbs on 3 days' notice. And the number three way it could be worse, we could still have Ed Donashell as the defensive coordinator of this team. And that would be an invitation to Taylor Heineke and an Atlanta offense that kind of, to me, feels like Bijan Robinson, sometimes Kyle Pitts. That's kind of that's what is threatening about this offense.
Yeah.
And it would be an invitation to those two guys to just like, yeah, go ahead, just do whatever you want to this defense. We have a competent defensive coordinator that is going to, I think, hold this team under 17 points. And so the offense has we have a puncher's chance going into Atlanta. What is I had to get that out there. Look, let's be optimistic on this show. I'm usually a pessimist. I'm going to try to be an optimist because we're dressed up for Halloween. So I'm doing things differently. What are you looking at in Atlanta? Obviously, no Kirk Cousins. Do you think Jaren Hall will do good? Do you think he'll do bad? You can take it any direction. I'm just giving you prompts.
how how far does this team go last year if Brian Flores is the defensive coordinator?
I'm telling you, that's why we didn't get Dexter Lawrence, is because the Giants are still pissed at the Vikings because they gave Daniel Jones an extension strictly because of how he played against the Vikings late in the season and in the playoffs.
Like, I think there's a realistic chance the Vikings make the Super Bowl last year with Brian Flores playing at the defensive coordinator spot. Like, it sounds hyperbolic, but like, man, it it's just kind of sad to think about because I do think Brian Flores was on their list last year of someone to target. But um, anyway, the Falcons Sunday afternoon. It's going to be a low scoring game. I think everybody kind of is aware of that. The over under right now is set at 37. It looks like a Big Ten football game in terms of over under. It's about accurate. I think what I'm going to be curious about is how well the Vikings are able to run the ball on this Atlanta defense, because the Atlanta defense is one that is actually pretty good. They're kind of comparable to the Vikings in a lot of different ways, and better than the Vikings in some ways. And um, they allow less than 4 yards a carry. So the Vikings have been challenged running the ball all season. They're going to have to lean on that a lot with Jaren starting, and it's going to be really interesting to see if they can move the ball, because it's gonna be a tall task, and it's gonna have to be an area of focus. And frankly, it's gonna be the same. On the flip side, the Vikings are gonna have to stop the Atlanta run because they don't throw very much, and now they have their backup quarterback Taylor Heineke playing, and he's not exactly a precision passer. He's more of an athletic type,
Right.
playmaker type, and it's going to be a lot of running. The game's probably going to be over in 2 hours and 15 minutes or something. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see how that plays out. I think the game, especially this week, is won between the tackles and 3 yards and a cloud of rubber pellets.
I love it, and let me say this, because this is my moment. Every show, I have one thing that I'm very excited to talk about, and this is my moment. This was going to be my last note, but I'm bumping it up because this is how the show has went. The Vikings cannot be afraid of throwing the ball. This team is built with the passing game in mind. You have the highest paid tight end. You don't pay a tight end the highest paid money of all time if he's just a run blocker. You have the highest paid tight end in NFL history. You have the best rookie wide receiver in the NFL. You have KJ Osborne, who is okay. And then you have Brandon Powell, who is just a walking man beater. You can't play man coverage against him. He will just run a slant, a shallow cross, and he'll pick up 20 yards off of it. I love Brandon Powell. He's slowly turning into my favorite player. The Vikings.
He also wore a Mr. Incredible costume on Halloween, by the way.
Did he really? Maybe that is fate. Maybe that's like destiny telling me
omen.
that I should change my game ball pickup. But let me just say that the Vikings have struggled to run the ball, and teams know that they can't run the ball well, and teams know that they want to throw the ball. Cousins is healthy. You have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson, all of these weapons. Teams fear your passing attack because of how potent it is. It's top 5 in the league, and you can't run the ball. And whether it's Alex Madison isn't very good, it's the line just doesn't get the scheme right, whatever the case may be, they just don't run the ball well. Or if it's game script, they're just not running the ball efficiently. Do you think that they're going to face a single box on Sunday that is not loaded with players? Like, they're going to be going up against loaded boxes. Load the Box, that's the name of this show. Fun, because it's fun football time, in my opinion. They are going to be facing 7, 8, 9 guys in the box every down, because unless it's third and long, because then they know we're not going to run the ball. So you have to trust Jaren Hall. And
Absolutely.
it would be one thing if the goal is make the playoffs. In my opinion, your goal should never be, well, if we just make the playoffs, that's fine. The goal is you make the playoffs because if you make the playoffs, you can win a Super Bowl. And if that's the goal, you have to go out and you have to just run not the Cousins offense, but you have to run an offense that includes passing the ball. And so, yes, I want the Vikings to run the ball well. I want them to run the ball well in every game. They haven't been able to. And so I'm not going to expect them to all of a sudden now that teams expect them to run the ball heavily. So you have to go out with the mentality of Jaren Hall is going to have to throw this ball. Josh Dobbs, if he ends up getting stouts, is going to have to throw the ball a few times. And maybe you do you mix in some quarterback runs into the game plan to manufacture the run game. You throw some wide receiver screens, quick passes to simulate a running game, but it's not technically the running game. Pop passes, motions, all that kind of stuff. You have to let Jaren Hall distribute, and you have to trust him. And I know that's a lot to ask of a 5th-round pick, but your options are kind of limited. I said before the season, if Cousins goes, I say this every season, if Cousins goes down, the year's over. We might as well just, sell everything and start over. I like that the Vikings didn't sell everything. I like that the Vikings are still going to go out and give it their all. So give it your all. Leave it all out on the field. Let's not just say, okay, well, because Cousins is hurt, we have to run. Oh, shoot, it's 3rd and 12. Incomplete pass because even Cousins is not Mr. Automatic on 3rd and long. Punt, hope the defense gets 2 pick sixes or else we lose. So I expect it to be low scoring, but I think if the Vikings have a chance to win this game, Jaren Hall has to throw for like 220 yards. And he has to score he doesn't have to score a touchdown, but he has to lead a couple of successful drives that result in touchdowns.
Yep. Yeah, a couple things that you mentioned that I really liked that I want to build on. You're talking about sort of this offensive creativity, and you also talked about needing to trust Jaren Hall to make throws. I think there is proof for both of those things being true moving forward, or there is evidence that they will continue to be true. For one, the last 2 weeks, the creativity in the offense has been awesome. There's been a couple of end arounds. There was one to Brandon Powell in like a 3rd and short that he converted in Green Bay. There was that double pass that Jordan Addison threw back across the field to Ty Chandler against San Francisco, was eventually called back because of a offensive pass interference penalty, but everything about that play was perfect. And even if you don't, commit that OPI, you still get a big gain out of it. And there was another one too where it was like a fake jet sweep to Brandon Powell and then a quick dump off to Ty Chandler in the opposite flat. Just little pieces of creativity that I think O'Connell has been forced to implement because of the lack of Justin Jefferson. Obviously, that need for creativity is just going to go up and up and up when you don't have your starting quarterback. But I've liked what I've seen these last 2 weeks against pretty good teams in terms of their defenses. I don't think Green Bay's offense is very good. Their defense is, respectable. But those two games have shown me enough creativity where I can hang my hat on that a little bit and say, like, okay, I've liked what Kevin O'Connell has done, pressing certain buttons. I think his game plans have been really crisp. And I think if those two things continue, you give your rookie a shot. And in terms of giving your rookie a shot, Kevin O'Connell trusting Jaren Hall to drop back and throw as many times as he did in those 2 brief drives shows me, and also what I heard from Kevin O'Connell in his press conferences this last week, he's had about 100 of them. He does trust Jaren Hall. And he said as much after the Green Bay game, like, hey, I wanted to show Jaren that I trust him with the ball. That's why I called the plays the way I did. That 3rd down conversion to TJ Hawkinson, although, we obviously didn't get points out of that drive, was a massive conversion in killing clock. So, there's proof that O'Connell's going to trust him, and there's also proof that he can be creative. And To your final point about like, okay, we decided not to sell the team. We decided not to burn it down. We have to go for it. It's clear that that's how this team feels. They are, there were quotes from Kwesi saying about how much the team was sort of saying like, we're gelling. We're here and we're ready. We're going to go for it. And O'Connell was adamant in his press conference the other day talking about how he owes it to the entire building that he's going to give it his all. And there's nothing in this team at this moment that is ready to just lie down and let the season evaporate. I also don't think that Kirk Cousins is going to walk away and, stop his, service to the team, if you will. He's going to keep educating the quarterback room, et cetera. Right. So I think this team has a lot going for it. And I think they're jumping on their own bandwagon, if you will. Obviously if the quarterbacks don't play well, it doesn't matter. But I think in terms of diving in, they are all in. The mentality is there as well as the actions.
Yeah, and I think that the reason you go out and you make this kind of freebie trade to get a guy like Josh Dobbs is because now you have someone who, granted, it's not like he's a 10-year vet that has never lost a game or has played meaningful football or anything like that, but you have a guy who has played against real NFL defenses, my favorite term in all of football. He has seen live bullets on the field, guys trying to confuse him, all of this stuff. And so Jaren Hall has someone he can talk to that understands what it's like to play football and use your legs a little bit and use that as an asset to you more than just like a desperation. And I think if Jaren Hall runs in a 5 or 6 yard touchdown, I think he goes to the sideline and Nick Mullins says, look, kid, you missed this read and you could have thrown it to this guy and, you don't want to take off because that'll get you hurt and that's how, you want longevity and blah, blah, blah. And, like, I think then Josh Dobbs is just going to be like, I would have done the same thing, man. Like, I would have, it wasn't there. You made something happen. You got points, high fives all around. And so I'm not saying that Nick Mullins is crusty old man. I'm sure he's a great teammate. I'm just saying that Dobbs is going to approach and see the game differently than someone like Nick Mullins is. And so I think that's why you go out and you get a Josh Dobbs, is to empower Jaren Hall to be able to run this offense. And the offense is going to change. It's not going to be the same lethal passing attack, just an assassin from the pocket in Kirk Cousins anymore. But the offense is going to learn this new mid-season switch up. Okay, now we have running quarterbacks, and what do we do with that? You now have that, and if Jaren Hall doesn't perform well, or if Jaren Hall gets injured, which was a problem with him in college, knock on wood, now you have Josh Dobbs and the offense can stay the same and your wide receivers aren't going from, okay, well, which offense are we in now? And do we need to go back to the playbook from 5 weeks ago or do we need the playbook from 2 weeks ago? And so I think that they're just trying to keep consistency the rest of the way. And this will be my final thought on this game before we do game balls and stuff. What Jaren Hall needs to do is not be Patrick Mahomes. It is not even be Brock Purdy. I don't need anybody talking about, is Jaren Hall the MVP? I don't need anybody talking about how well he's playing. I need him to not throw interceptions. I need Jaren Hall to just comfortably make 1 or 2 reads, easy throws, let your skill position players do all the dirty work, kind of what San Francisco's doing with Brock Purdy, where it's very like, look, here's the offense. You have very talented guys around you. Go be a point guard. Distribute the ball to the guys that make all the money and get all the headlines. And don't throw interceptions. And if you throw a bunch of interceptions, we're going to talk about maybe putting Josh Dobbs in there because we can't have interceptions. That's just a no-go. So Jaren Hall just needs to play clean football, which kind of fits with the theme of the Vikings season. Let's just play clean football and we'll win a bunch of games. So, I'll let you do score predictions and game balls and get other stuff off your chest, but I just wanted to point that stuff out.
Yeah, very well said. I think that it's very much a key to Jaren Hall's success. For me, this game, like I said, it's going to be low scoring. I went back and forth on this. I do think the Falcons are going to win. I think it'll be close. I think the Vikings defense will give him a shot. It's just hard for me to know what to expect from a guy who didn't play great in preseason when he did see the field and hasn't seen the field really since. Yes, full week of preparation. Yes, it's like a full playbook now, game plan tailored around him, et cetera, et cetera. But going on the road, really loud building, very good defense. It's going to be a lot to ask for a guy who doesn't have, Justin Jefferson and a questionable running game. So Falcons win 19-16, lots of field goals. I think a key to that is that Atlanta has a really good red zone defense. They've only allowed about 42% of red zone drives ending in touchdowns. And the Vikings have red zone offense troubles as it is. And you throw a rookie in there, they're going to be kicking lots of short field goals. And I just think it's going to be similar defensively. The Vikings defense will give them a chance. It's going to come down to who gets inside the 20 enough to kick enough field goals. So my game ball, if the Vikings do win, I think it's going to go to the entire interior of the defensive line. Kevin's been into this whole, give an entire unit a game ball thing. He gave the entire offensive line a game ball against San Francisco. He gave the entire defense a game ball against Green Bay this last week. So I think if there's a victory to celebrate, I think the entire interior of the defensive line, so we're talking Jonathan Bullard and what's his name, Harrison Phillips and Kyrus Tonga, and those guys are all going to get game balls because it's going to be a lot of running. It's going to be a lot of can we stuff Bijan Robinson and Algier in the holes and shut down the running game. So 1916 Falcons, interior D-line gets the game ball.
Yeah, I'm going to go, I'll do my scope. You know what, I'll do my game ball first because I actually, and this is a spoiler, I guess, for the game prediction, but I'm going to pick the Vikings to go on a 4-game win streak now. I'm going to say that they keep it going. And yeah, it's mostly the defense, and I thought about being cheeky and saying my offensive game ball is going to go to, I don't know, Harrison Smith, who gets a pick 6. Oh, something like that. Say that, and the Vikings win 7-3 or something. But a game, in my opinion, that brings a tear to the eye of old Mike Zimmer. Just running the ball and telling your quarterback, don't turn it over or I'll beat the crap out of you after the game. And relying on the defense to get stops for you time after time. I mean, the Vikings are right back in, 2015 mode or 2014 mode. When did we have Matt Castle? The Matt Castle season, because we're not confident in our quarterback, but we're going to be confident in our defense because that's all we have, I guess. Which that's some people would say the Dark Ages, but for me that was the beginning of a new era of Vikings football. I have the Vikings. I guess I'll do the score prediction. I have them winning 20-10. A 10-point victory on the road. 2 field goals, 2 touchdowns. So 4 successful drives for Jaren Hall's offense. And look, man, I mean, you make your first out in the NFL on the road and you get a win, you get a game ball. And so I'm giving my game ball to Jaren Hall, who I think has 1 passing touchdown and 1 rushing touchdown. And he accounts for both Vikings touchdowns. I think that even if it's like a tush-push situation, I think Jaren Hall does find the end zone with his life. I'm more confident he will score a touchdown running than I am with him throwing. But I this will be my final thoughts, and then I'll pass it off to you. I like that you pointed out, that Jaren Hall didn't wow anybody in training camp and preseason, because that's correct. He didn't. So much so, he's our third-string quarterback. And I feel like people are forgetting this about Jaren Hall. Yeah. And so, look, I think that there is potential there. I think that he could step in and look pretty decent and be carried by a good defense and elite skill position play. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I'm not going to I'm not gonna say he's gonna be the starter next year. I'm not gonna say he's gonna be off the team next year. I'm not gonna go to either of the extremes. I'm gonna wait and watch the games and see how the kid plays. But I do think it's worth pointing out that was the plan. My final thoughts are going to be dedicated to one person on Twitter whose name I don't remember, and it doesn't really matter because I doubt they listen to the show anyway. But I hope you do. You should listen, person who I'm addressing now, and they'll know who they are if they watch the show. I was tweeting out after the Cousins injury and, tweeting proposed plans and what I would do and yada yada. And this is a common take in the Vikings Twitterverse or Xverse, whatever you want to call it. There's this idea that, well, now all those Vikings fans that said they didn't want Kirk Cousins get their wish, and you get to see what this team looks like without Kirk Cousins. And I'm all about pooping on people that say stupid things. But, there are two ways to respond to that statement of, okay, yeah, we do get what we want. Shouldn't say we, because I want to extend Cousins, but they do get what they want. The Vikings are going to be really bad, and they're going to pick in, the top 5 and get a quarterback in the top 5, and so they get what they want. Oh, they get what they want because the team will be decent without Cousins, and they can say, see, it wasn't Cousins at all. It was this. And so the plan was never, and I have to say that the plan, find me a clip of someone saying the plan was to have a 5th-round rookie replace Kirk Cousins and to win right away in life after Cousins. And I'll give you, I don't know, I'll give you this Donatello Lego that my wife, you can't see him. You can kind of see the outline of it. Does this help? Nope. You're not going to be able to see him. You can have my Donatello Lego that sits on my desk if you can find me a video of that, because I don't think it exists, because no one in their right mind would say something so ludicrous as we should replace Kirk Cousins with a 5th-round rookie. There's a lot of anger, I think, and it's starting to subside on the internet, but let's all chill out, man. Okay, let's not be mean to each other over whether or not we think Kirk Cousins is good or bad. And I had a really nice debate, if you want to call it that, where I posted on Twitter that we should extend Kirk because I think the asking price will be kind of lower. We can make him the 11th highest paid QB and sign him for 3 years, and he can retire a Viking and live in Minnesota for the rest of his life and go in the Ring of Honor someday. And good career with the Vikings, Kirk, and I love that idea. And someone was like, yeah, and we'll never win a Super Bowl with him because he's mid. And I was like, well, I think ignoring the last 3 years of tape is kind of stupid to do because he's been really good. And so, we had that debate, and we ended on a point of at the end of the day, you know what we're going to do? We're all going to sit down on the couch, and we're going to watch the Vikings and cheer for the Vikings to win. So we're all on the same team. We all need to remember that. This is a very sucky time. I do want to ask you this. And then I'm gonna ask you a question really quickly. Let me tell everybody that they should follow this show at LTB Vikings on Twitter, and you should find us wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Perks of watching the YouTube channel include you get to see, just yoked out of his mind. Will, give me some flexes. Give me some yeah. Give the fans what they want. There it is. You also get to see me with hat, hair, and a stupid hood. And you get to see me talk with my hands a lot. I'm like Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands during the interviews. But you should subscribe to the YouTube channel, share it with a friend, help us grow, all that kind of stuff. And make sure you check out Will on Twitter or X, whatever, at Will Bad Lose. Check out the Bad Loser blog and VikingsTerritory.com. Will, my final thought is a question posed to you, posed to fans. And I've forgotten what it was. It was such a good question, too. So I'm just going to make something up on the spot, I guess. The Vikings have how many games with Jaren Hall now? 9? 9 games without Kirk Cousins. I'm not going to say with Jaren Hall. My question that I'm posing to you, how many do they win without Kirk Cousins?
That's the question. The 5 before what is it? The 4 before the bye?
I believe
so.
We
got 4,
I thought
4
the bye
before
was
the
after
bye.
Atlanta, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's 4 before the bye, and then the Raiders, and then Bengals, and then those 3 division games to close out. Man. I'm going to say 4.
Okay. So 8 and
They
9.
probably finish 8-9 and make everybody mad.
They
They probably finish 8-9 and make everybody mad.
That's fair. I mean, that
I
it
just,
will piss people off.
I think. I think I will have a much better response after Sunday at about 3 p.m. Central Time because I think we'll get a better idea of what Jaren Hall can do. I expect him to play conservatively. I expect him to not make mistakes. I expect him to play well enough. Kind of just that's kind of his nature. It feels like too. He's a very polished individual who's mature and someone was like, "Oh God," I was talking to somebody at work today, and they're like, "Oh gosh, he was a backup to Zach Wilson. You guys are in trouble." It's like, well, he was a backup to Zach Wilson at the beginning of his career after he took 2 years off from football to go on mission.
And Zach Wilson was
And
also playing at a level that got him selected number 2 overall.
exactly.
He was
So
very good in college.
he was clearly a highly touted prospect, and so I expect Jaren Hall to play under control, not too many mistakes. But we'll see. We'll see if he has enough juice in the tank to get this team, maybe to 10 wins, get him in the playoffs somehow. Who knows? 9 wins might get you in the playoffs this year with the NFC. So, one just quick thing for my final thought, and then, or maybe I'll throw that question back to you. How many wins do you think that we get these last 9 weeks?
Oh man, it's really hard for me to say we're gonna go 6-3 and get to 10, but I'm gonna say we go 6-3 and we get to 10. I don't care if it is Josh Dobbs, Jaren Hall. I have such an optimistic feeling, and I think I'm going through the stages of grief, and so I'm in denial right now.
Yep.
And I think I'm just believing that the defense is going to play out of its mind, and Danielle Hunter's going to have like 10 sacks in the next 9 weeks, and he's going to have a 20-sack season, and the defense is just going to ball out, and we're going to win a bunch of games 17-13, and we're going to get stomped in the playoffs. We're not winning a Super Bowl, but I think that we're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I like the way you're thinking because the positivity in me also says something similar because of the current, upward trajectory of the entire team. Obviously, sans quarterback, but the entire team is sort of just doing this right now. And momentum matters, and team chemistry matters, and energy matters, and all these things that the Vikings have going for them, they do matter. So I won't be completely shocked if this team somehow goes 6-3 over the last 9 and makes the playoffs. There's a lot of winnable games left. My final thought, kind of in this whole vein, the Atlanta Falcons, not too surprising with a pretty good defense, but they've kind of feasted on young quarterbacks this year. They turned over the Panthers in week 1 3 times, only allowed 281 total yards. The Texans, they only allowed 313 yards. The Commanders, they held under 200 yards. And finally, though, in week 8, Will Levis lit them up for 375 yards. So it took until the last, of those, rookie/young quarterback iterations for the Falcons to sort of break a little bit. So it's going to be a tough task for Jaren Hall against a defense that has done very well against, rookies, young, unexperienced quarterbacks. So tall task for Jaren, tall task for the Vikings going on the road. I think they're 5-point underdogs at this point. So in some ways, this new era is exciting. You get to see what the kid can do. And that all starts on Sunday at 12 p.m. Central. This was Load the Box. This is Will and Jordan. We will be back next week to talk Falcons, to talk Week 10, whoever they play, the Saints, and then we'll be on our way. Skol, y'all.